Last but not least, we've got Joop Coolen from the Wageningen Marine Research in the Netherlands, and he's going to talk to us about marine growth sampling tool evaluation. The green one is on.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, so my name is Joop Coolen. I'm Wageningen Marine Research, very well pronounced for a non-Dutch speaker. I'm presenting also on behalf of Bluestream Offshore, which is an RV diving inspection company, also from the Netherlands. Jan Jelle Huizinga, the second name, is my partner in this. He's basically the inventor of the system I'm going to present. Several people already talked about this, and I think I've seen this picture twice already. But offshore wind farms offer hard substrate as a habitat for colonizing species, and we have a lot of species colonizing on there. In the Netherlands, it's mostly dominated by mussels, amphipods, and anemones. There's a lot of variations. So if you study one wind farm, you don't know what is happening in the other one. These kind of data are important for many different reasons, and it's typically collected by divers today. So in the Netherlands, in Germany, Belgium, Denmark, all these kinds of samples have been collected by divers. I'm a diver myself for this same reason. You go down, you take a sample from a frame, you scrape everything, deposit it in a net, and then you take it on board. However, nowadays the wind farm industry is increasing safety, and for these reasons, at many locations diving is not possible anymore. Either not allowed or not feasible financially, because the safety requirements ask for enormous vessels and offshore dive teams. So there was a problem we have been encountering for the last 10 years in the Netherlands, and the standard solution for problems like this is robotics in the offshore industry. So an ROV tool for sampling marine growth and scour protection possibly was needed. Then we did a market search to identify such tools, but no tool existed on the market that can take samples in a quantitative manner. We are talking biomass today, and typically we want to know biomass per unit of area, and to attain that we need a quantitative sample to upscale this to different sizes. So this was not available, and then we decided together with Bluestream to just go ahead and develop such a tool. Well, we started discussing that already before 2020, but in 2021 we got together with this company. We are Applied Research Institute, and they are a commercial company, so we had some agreements on there, and then we developed a first concept together. So we put in our experience sampling offshore structures, and Bluestream put in their engineering experience with RV work, and then we developed the concept. This was built, it was tested in-house at Bluestream. We did a second version because, of course, if you test it, you find ways to improve it, and we tested it again. And then at some point we were ready for an offshore test, and luckily somewhere, I don't remember the exact year, but at some point during New Year's Eve, a vessel collided with a Vattenfall wind farm, so they hit a turbine foundation, and this was damaged. It's lucky for us, not for Vattenfall. So this was this was during construction, so this foundation never received a turbine. So there was a empty turbine foundation sticking out of the sea, and Vattenfall planned to remove that. And meanwhile, we had been exploring options to develop this tool, and also discussed with some of the operators if we would have a tool like that, what would you think about that? Could you maybe allow us to test it or use it? And one of the potential problems they identified was coating damage. So they were all very scared that our tool would be very efficient in removing marine growth, which it's built for, but also scratching the coating from their turbine foundations. So that was why Vattenfall allowed us to sample that one damaged turbine foundation, because it was going out anyway. They couldn't care less about any scratches on the paint. So we did this test in November 2023, funded by the Dutch government. We went in that wind farm and we executed the sampling test using the tool. And then last year we evaluated all the samples that we took, and we actually now this year published a report, and it's available online. So this is the combination of the ROV and the tool. If you had operated from a relatively small container that's placed on deck, and there's a little crane, if you will, with a winch to move it into the water. And then the top side of this right picture, you see the ROV. That's a sort of a standard video inspection ROV that's delivering that useless biomass data. But it's a small one. And we went for a small one because deployment is super efficient with these small ones compared to a big one, which is more sturdy and can house a larger tool, but also deployment takes much more time. And then on the bottom, you see here there's a plastic, this white plastic box that's called a skid. This houses the tool, and the tool has a putty knife basically on the front. It's shown in green here because we tested with a green knife, but also with a metal. It's a green plastic knife, but also a metal knife, with a suction mouth, a flexible hose, and then in the back there's a chamber where the water flows in, and in the back of the chamber there's a thruster sucking out the water, and in between the inlet and the thruster there's a net that retains the sample. And then we send it down and take samples once at a time. So the Dutch government funded us, but they also had some requests. So they requested us to, we wanted, of course, to assess the general performance of the tool in offshore conditions, and then evaluate the feasibility of different depth sampling. And then afterwards, we were going to identify all the species present in the samples, identify, count, and weigh them, typical biomass, biofouling inventory data. But we also analyzed the presence of coating particles in the samples, because our sampling mesh, mesh size was 0.5 millimeters, is relatively small, so large chips of paint would be contained in there as well. And then we, during data analysis, we tried to use used existing data to try and do a comparison between diver data and tool data. Well, so we did this test. When we started, we hoped for about 10 samples in 2 days, and we collected 25 samples in 22 hours. So we were actually very pleased with ourselves that this tool was working very well. Some of the samples were rejected for quality reasons, and these were mainly from shallow parts of the structure, because the wave action at 3 meters, 4 meters depth was too much for the RV to stabilize, to take proper samples. So all successful samples were taken between 4 and 20 meters, the rest are set. And this is a video of the tool in action. So here you see the tool moving from right to left. Because I only have a short time, I cut a piece of the video. The tool is capable of following the curve of the structure. So it's the diameter of your wind turbine foundation or your platform leg is programmed in the software, and then it follows this curve. And once you finish your sample, this is the moment where the sample is finished, you can also move the tool back to measure whether or not you actually sampled the planned sampling size. And in this way, you can also quantify the difference in sample sizes, so even smaller or slightly larger samples can then be used in your data analysis anyway. You see a rounded knife here. These are on the sides. These are like pizza knives, parallel to the putty knife. They move with the putty knife in the middle, cutting the sides of your sample, and then the putty knife cuts it away. And afterwards, once the sample is taken, you can, while lifting off with your RV, you can take a snapshot of your sampled area to also evaluate whether or not it was nicely squared, or maybe the RV moved. I have a few pictures later of samples that didn't show a perfect rectangle. So, about the field test. In general, the ROV tool performed well. We were a bit lucky in this that we had only very thin amphipod anemone-dominated fouling. So there were no mussels in our samples, or hardly any mussels in our samples. So this is why we were also very efficient. The turnaround time, we calculated that on both days. This was about 22 minutes. And we didn't observe any visual damage to the coating. The sampled area, like I explained, you can back measure the sampled area. So we did that, and then we calculated the average as well as the extremes. And in most cases, 16 out of 21 successful samples, this was exactly as planned, 560 square centimeters as planned. And with the others we had some deviation, but the total average deviation was only 1%. Here you see some examples of ROV movement during sampling. Here the ROV tool moved slightly up. So you see that the tool scraped, all of a sudden started scraping more higher. Here something happened with the magnets. There are four magnets, two on the top and two on the bottom, that push against the structure while the ROV pushes. So the magnets help extra in stabilizing, and here something happened with the magnet moving. I'm not sure if that's before or after sampling. And here you see something that happens by the presence of species. So here was probably a larger species being scraped with the sample, and here there was a larger species left in place. Well, this is exactly what happens when you take samples diving, so that is not very strange. We did a quick comparison to data collection we gathered on biofouling data from the southern North Sea in offshore wind farms. And we compared that, the number of individuals in a sample, upscaled to the square meter, or the number of species, to other wind farms where data was collected by divers, and it's exactly in range of these other data sets. We also found some coating, but the sizes are relatively small compared to the sampled area. The average coating size of coating particles in a sample was 0.001%, and the biggest maximum worst case coating damage we did was 0.005% of a sample. And in more than half of the samples we didn't find any coating. This is on the size in square millimeters. We are now having the thickness of the coating measured as well, but that's not finished yet. So then, in conclusion, we found, visually, we found no clear damaged fauna in the samples. The quality was similar or possibly even better than diver collected samples. We did observe some variation in sampled area, but I've taken hundreds of samples as a diver myself. In my data set, they are all exactly the same sample size. That's not true. But I don't quantify this as a diver. But now we have a means to actually quantify it, so it feels less precise, but actually it is more precise. We did not observe significant coating damage visually, and the coating particles were all very small percentages. So the tool test went well because the conditions were also very nice. The weather is a limiting factor, but we also expected some of the harder marine growth, like mussels or thick layers of anemones, could challenge our system. So the next steps in our new project that just started this month, it's called Rodrigo, forget about the real name, is to perform more of these tests. So we're going for different structures, but also different fauna types. One of the things to improve the weather condition, the dependence, is to use stronger magnets. And we want to do an actual test where we go to one structure, take samples with the ROV, take samples with the diver, and then do everything in the lab and compare these data sets from the same moment in time to have a real proper comparison. Well, I want to thank quickly the WOZEP Offshore Wind Ecological Program from the Netherlands and Vattenfall, of course, for allowing us. and and basically the inventor Jan Jelle Huizinga, who is shown in this picture. And in the slides there's a bit more information on the new project, the next one. I will not show that, but I think my time is up, right?